Welcome back, everyone. Oz here. And today I've got some r/PettyRevenge for you all. As per usual, I'll narrate the post, give you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Cirrus Fox. The time a neighborhood kid got even on the asshole delivery guy. This one happened a few years ago. Our mail carrier changed, and the new guy, call him Dave, was an absolute asshole. Trod on flower beds, rude to people. But the real kicker was Dave would pee in a bottle. And if he was in a bad mood, that bottle would be thrown in someone's garden. If you tell him to throw the bottle in the trash, he'd throw it at you. Dave was the son of the postmaster, Bob, an older guy of the boys will be boys mindset, and best friends with the local sheriff, Steve. If you talked to Bob about his son, it'd be excuses. He's a foster kid. He's had a hard life, and on and on. If you went to Steve, then it'd be boys will be boys. Dave was in his 30s, or Postmaster Bob is dealing with it personally. One day, in the middle of summer, the neighborhood kids got to see Mailman Dave being his usual sunny self. Seems Dave was mean to them too. The kids were out playing with their water pistols, and one of them had this real high-powered thing, which sent the water a good 10 feet or more. And the kid who owned it, Oren, was a great shot. It's a lovely day. 30 degrees sun, about 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm out back putting out dinner. Suddenly, there's this blood-curdling scream from Dave, and the whole neighborhood comes running out to see what happened. Turns out, Oren had loaded his water pistol with one of Dave's pee bottles, and topped it off with a can of Red Bull. So now, Dave was covered in this disgusting, sticky pee and sugar mess, which was starting to stink to high heaven. One of my neighbors offered to let Dave use her shower. He ran off to another house, grabbed the hose, and turns it on himself. So now, Dave is sticky, pee-soaked, and wet. He ditched everything in the street and ran off. Steve and Bob went walking the street that afternoon. We'd all not seen anything, of course. Bob had the bright idea of asking Oren, who told him exactly what we all thought of Dave and how he was acting, in the way only a bright-eyed 12-year-old can. Bob and Steve cornered Oren's dad. "Is this your son? Do you know what he did?" Without missing a beat, Oren's dad fired back. "Well, Sheriff Steve, don't you always say, boys will be boys?" We never saw Dave again, but Oren's birthday party was huge that year. God bless that kid. That water gun cocktail must have been just atrocious to smell. I mean, you gotta think of the fact that was sprayed on, and it was decently warm outside. It wasn't blistering hot, but it was warm enough that it would definitely begin to dry, and that sticky layer of residue that soaked up any kind of odors or scents attached to it would have certainly be binding to the top layer of his clothing and skin by that point. Ugh, goddamn. But hey, boys will be boys. I hate that excuse so goddamn much, but this might be the only time that I'm actually okay with it. Pearson Verartity. My extremely tiny and petty legally blonde moment. My 3-year odyssey of spite finally came together yesterday. When I was a fresh college grad in 2022, 21 female at the time, I dated an attorney for about 3 months, 27 male. He was a talented lawyer, spoke lucidly about what he did for work, and I trusted his opinions about the legal profession. So, after I finished a post-grad internship, I told him my real post-grad aspiration was to get a job at a law firm as a paralegal, and work as one until I was ready to apply for law school. He literally scoffed at me and told me I would be better off as a court clerk. I don't mean to harp on court clerks at all. It is a very difficult job, but it is more administrative in nature, and from the way he said it, it was exceedingly clear he meant the comment to be derogatory. He didn't elaborate on why he said this, but it was implied. I was taken aback and really fucking hurt. But at 21, I hadn't learned to have a spine yet, so I brushed it off. A few weeks later, I was working my first paralegal job. We broke up shortly after for reasons I'm sure you can guess. Anyway, he was right that I'm not going to be a paralegal. I took my LSAT last fall and scored in the 98th percentile. Sent out my applications, committed to UC Berkeley Law yesterday, ranked about 90 spots above his law school, but who's counting, and am going to become a lawyer. He is currently blocked on LinkedIn after I was the recipient of some profile creeping from him, but today, I'm going to unblock him so he can see. Definitely reminiscent of the scene from Legally Blonde where she gets the prestigious internship. Remember those hours we spent in the hot tub on spring break? Well, this is so much better. Edit, I'm blown away by the number of kind comments this post has received. Thank you so much for sharing in my pettiness. I hope you're all achieving your dreams too. Heart emoji. Spite is a hell of a motivator. And honestly, if you found a way that you can weaponize your spite against someone, definitely don't be afraid to utilize it. Sure, it's not the healthiest way of managing your own personal anxieties, but hey, if it gets the job done, it gets the job done. I mean, hell, I've used spite plenty of times to make sure I get out of bed in the morning when I was in a personal rut. But there is just something so unbelievably satisfying when someone says that you can't do something and you fucking do it and knock it out of the park. God, it feels good. Major props to OP for such an awesome accomplishment, by the way. Congrats on getting into UC Berkeley, and hopefully you can continue to rub it in your ex's face who had no faith in you. Odd Freedom 9198. The time a supervisor tried to throw me under the bus, but I had receipts. This happened in 2015, during my first year of teaching in special education, USA. I don't know if anyone else here works in SPED, but if you do, you're probably familiar with the difficult process of obtaining a one-on-one paraprofessional for a student. So I had this kiddo, we'll call him Jay. Jay had some unsafe behaviors as a kindergartner, such as eloping from the school and into the neighborhood. It was terrifying to say the least, and a big safety concern. So I spoke with my supervisor, showed him the data, and he agreed this student definitely needed one-on-one support. My supervisor, Mr. C, worked with me for a couple of weeks in the safety net process, getting a one-on-one. It was a lot of loops and jumps and saying the right thing in very specific ways. But I got it completed. I sent it to Mr. C for the last final review, and was met with silence. I emailed him after a day, cause we're all busy in this field, no worries. But more silence. I called his office and left a voicemail with his secretary. But more silence. I tried to get a hold of him for 2 weeks with growing worry because the deadline was approaching, but I never heard back from him. After the due date passed, he finally messaged me and said since I didn't reach out to him with the final copy, the one-on-one wasn't approved. I was pissed. So I gathered copies of all the emails, the phone calls, every attempt I made to reach out to him and sent it to his boss, Mr. B, head of the Special Education Services. I also included Mr. C's last email. A couple of days later, Mr. C sent me a formal letter of apology through our district mailing system. Mr. B granted me an extension and filed the paperwork himself, and also granted me an emergency one-on-one while the paperwork processed. At the end of the year, Mr. C was fired from his position. I doubt it was just me, but I'm sure my receipts had something to do with his removal as a special ed supervisor. And that's my story. I was telling it to a coworker here, and he said I should post it under PettyRevenge. Honestly, I'm kind of glad that he got fired, because in the USA, our special education departments are oftentimes they're understaffed or underfunded, and it certainly doesn't help that we have people like Mr. C here, who's actively essentially sabotaging the application process for anyone to get further on with their career in special education. Like, dude should be ashamed of himself. And also, good on OP for keeping receipts. This is why I always recommend that. Even if you feel like you're keeping receipts for no reason and they may never come in handy, you never know. Because the day that shit comes crashing down and that inkling feeling that you had of keeping receipts comes in handy, God, it'll feel great having all the evidence you need at a fingertips notice. Especially if legal gets involved. Boop in my bop. I just spam called my year-long spam caller. I recently scam called my scam callers and it got them to stop. They were calling 10 to 15 times a day, each time spoofing a US-based location, and had the exact same voicemail, which has caused me to need to delete my entire voicemail inbox 3 times a week for at least a year. Extremely frustrating. So many calls during work meetings, important moments with friends, etc. Every single time the same voicemail message. This is Jennifer from the senior underwriting. Oh my god, it's one of fucking these! Ugh! This is Jennifer from the senior underwriting team calling about your loan. Listen to this shit. I deal with this shit too.
This is Lisa from the U1st Finance team. I'm an underwriter, and we tried reaching you last week to let you know you pre-qualified for a consolidation.
I have tried fucking everything to make this stop. I found Reddit posts about this specific scam, and in one comment, a guy claimed to have scam called them back, and it got them to stop. So I decided, what the heck? Let me see if this works. You have my full attention. I called, put myself on mute, and hung up after 5 to 10 seconds of them talking. I did this exactly 266 times in 35 minutes, each time to the same number. I cycled through 20 to 30 employees with accents from Australia to India to Mid-Atlantic. At least 3 different company names they claimed to be from, and many, many scripts. Sometimes they'd start one script, then mess up and start on another. Other times they'd just say, hello. The best was when they changed mid-script what company they were claiming to be from. Then sometimes they'd say, hello, Mr. Boop. After about 150 calls, I started getting intermittently hung up on immediately after they answered the call. I knew I was getting to them. Finally, at call 260, I reached the final fucking boss. In a deep, mob boss type voice, I hear, and I kid you not, Mr. Boop, you've got to stop with these spam calls. I mean, seriously, you got to have something better to do with your time. This happened Thursday and I'm still riding the high. And oh yeah, they have not called me back. Next time I get one of these calls, I am going to fucking make my entire afternoon dedicated to having their phone lines bleed. Because the biggest difference between me and OP is I know how to set up an auto dialer. And I have been reaching a fucking breaking point with this goddamn spam calling that's been happening. I've told them to stop calling me. I'm on the FCC do not call list. I've filed FCC complaints. I've even just legally threatened them that if they call me again, I'm going to go after them for harassment. It's a bluff, of course, but it worked for about 2 months, and then it started right back up again. The best part is I sleep during the day, so I can just set the auto dialer up and go to bed. Posted by No Routine 7027. She charged me $1,200 in cleaning fees. So I cleaned her reviews. I rented a small event space for a surprise party. The place looked nice online, decent price, and the host seemed polite enough, until after the event. Out of nowhere, she hits me with a $1,200 deep cleaning bill. Said we left the place unusable, which was wild because we barely used the kitchen and left it cleaner than we found it. I asked for proof. She sent blurry photos of trash, not even ours. I appealed through the booking platform. Denied. She was clearly running a side hustle. Scam a few hundred off each booking and hope no one fights too hard. So, I did my own cleaning. I found her business on every platform I could. Yelp, Google, Facebook, event site. And left detailed, calm, 1-star reviews with photos from her event, showing how spotless the place was when we left. Turns out, I wasn't the only one. My reviews picked up traction. Others came forward with the same scam. Within weeks, her rating dropped from 4.8 to 2.9. Last I checked, she's offering 50% off all bookings. Guess someone's trying to clean up her reputation. A recommendation that I have if you're ever renting an Airbnb or an event venue is always take before and after photos. And even better if you have some way to postmark the photos, whether it's like someone else's phone showing the date and time, or any other way you can think of. Because it'll help when dealing with disputes like this, and if someone decides to hit you with a bogus cleaning fee but you have photo evidence that you did in fact leave the place nicer than you left it, then hey, at least you have that to fall back on and it becomes, well yeah, they're saying this and they're posting blurry photos, but here's crystal clear timestamp photos from the time that I was leaving. Photos can go a long way, and it also helps prevent them from, hitting you with, let's say, a bogus defamation lawsuit because you're leaving negative reviews that are slanderous towards their business. And yes, that does happen. So photos can help deter, but not necessarily prevent any potential legal action that might come from you leaving a negative review. More potion, please. Dear boss, wanna see how much I really do for you? Shortly after graduating college, 2000, I took a 20% pay cut from my blue big box store assistant manager job to manage a rundown strip mall chain, fancy card and gift store for FCGS store, because I wanted a challenge and wasn't being treated well in the boys club at the Big Blue. You may have heard about the multiple class action lawsuits for crappy pay and discrimination, but that's a story for another day. The FCGS owner was a woman, and very nice, so I was excited to be treated with more respect. Wound up being on salary on a 50-plus hour a week job. I was yelled at for ordering wrapping paper / gift bag / tissue because the walls were bare. I was yelled at for an hour-long distance phone call that cost $5 when my friend was having a meltdown over an unplanned pregnancy. I offered to pay, but they wouldn't let me so they could teach me a lesson. What? At 3 months, they offered me another, bigger, brand new store because I did such a good job on the one I was running. Things were great there. I worked less hours, customers and staff were happier. A few months into that, they wanted me to take over the second highest profit store in the chain, of 12. The catch was, I had to do both. No biggie. The store I was currently in ran beautifully with the awesome employees I hired. I asked for a 50% raise and was told I had to prove myself for a month. Friends, I fell for it. After redoing the layout, cleaning top to bottom, actually organizing the storage room, remember this is peak porcelain statue time, so lots of tiny boxes, and still no raise, they asked me to train this woman right out of college on store operations. She and I became fast friends, and we started hanging out after work. We started talking. She said she was supposed to take over the big store in which I was currently proving myself. The owner never told me this, and didn't tell her I didn't know. I thought she would take over a new location. Remember, I'm running all the operations for 2 high-profit stores and continually increasing sales. She was brand new, no experience. I had 6 years experience in retail management. Her degree was in English. Mine was in business marketing. And best of all, she was making $5,000 more than me, and the most of any of the managers. Like, excuse me? Here's the petty part. I saw the error of my ways and devised a plan. I talked to all of my employees in both stores, about 15 people, and let them know I was planning on leaving and what the owner had done. You know the kind of people who work at FCGS? Kind, supportive, caring. This was too much for them too. 2 weeks later, the new manager and I went to the main office, met with the owner, and turned in our immediate resignations. And the immediate resignations of all staff but 3, single moms who couldn't quit immediately. She was livid. She yelled and cursed while we snickered. Within 3 months, the original store closed. A year after our resignations, the second and third stores closed. That was pretty gratifying. I think my friend and I may have skipped like children out of the office that day. I definitely know we hit the bar and took ourselves out for a nice dinner. Fast forward 25 years later, I'm still friends and coworkers in an entirely different field with one of the 2 main office workers that was there that day. She's given me the full details and the repercussions of that day. These stories still fill me with joy and pride. Too long didn't read, boss disrespects manager and loses 1/4 of their business within a year, or boss plays fuck around and find out and loses. There's a phrase that I'm starting to see pop up more and more within Reddit comments, that being that people don't quit bad jobs, they quit bad managers. And the more that I see stories like this, the more that I'm inclined to agree with probably 95% of scenarios that this is around. I can't even imagine being in a management position and having an employee that is doing like the job of essentially 2 people and doing it like with pride, denying them a 50% raise and then hiring someone to replace them. Why would you fucking do that? Just feels like shitty asset management. Like if you have an asset person corpo speak coming out a little bit there. If you have an employee that is bringing actual value to your company, why wouldn't you want to reward that to incentivize that behavior to continue? Like, I really never understood why managers end up pretty commonly shafting their actually well-performing employees in favor of a new prospect hire that they are kind of putting the cart before the horse with. Part of me wonders if maybe the new hire in OP's story had some kind of like nepotism attachments or something like that, but still, this happens far too often just for this to be like a one-off instance of nepotism. So like, why? It just seems like such an obvious solution not to screw over your well-performing employees, but it seems to happen way too goddamn often. Horace or Doris? So, we've paid your rent, have we? I was renting a 6-bedroom house with 8 others for 2 years. We were all in our 20s, earning good money and partying hard. The landlord didn't want to deal with us individually, so it was decided that one person had to be responsible for paying rent for us all. The person who paid the rent, Dave, also paid the initial deposit. Dave had rich parents, so he always had spare money to help out, and everyone agreed that he was a great bloke. Dave promised to pay the rent for the last month for all of us if we cleaned the place up, £600, when the contract ended. The house wasn't trashed, but needed a bit of a deep cleaning / decorating and a few repairs to get the deposit back. It was 6 months' rent of £3,600, which was a lot in the 1980s. So we agreed. Unfortunately for Dave, he was away when the landlord came to do an initial inspection to let us know what needed to happen for the deposit to be returned, and in conversation, It turned out that the rent was being split 8 ways, not 9. Dave had been living there rent-free for 2 years without us knowing. We had a massive party over a long weekend. Drinks were spilled and a food fight broke out on more than one occasion. We didn't put anything out for the dustman for 2 weeks. Cleaned nothing, and all moved out the day before Dave got back. 1 day before handover. Surprisingly, he managed to get £400 of the deposit back and tried to make us pay the outstanding money we owed him. He gave up after threats of police involvement if he tried to pursue it. I found out years later our actions totally wrecked his plan to put a deposit down on the house he was saving up our money for. Yeah, I entirely understand the revenge. I would be livid as hell as well if I found out that the person who was primarily handling the rent cost was actually inflating the numbers of it so that way they didn't have to pay, but everyone else was covertly covering their cost. Because the difference of $1,000 being split between 9 people is only around $14 when you drop it from 9 people paying it to 8 people paying it. That doesn't make it okay, but I'm just more of pointing out how unnoticeable it is to skim something like that off the top. I am a little shocked that no one who was renting there actually knew or understood like the proper cost of the rent itself, because, you know, with 9 people there, you would think that they would all at least have a rough number of how much they were paying for per month per rent, besides the number they had to individually pay. But I suppose if all those numbers were exclusively controlled by Dave, it'd be pretty easy for him just to inflate the cost of rent, and then have people pay that increased cost, and because of that increased cost, he now gets to live there, for free, for God knows how long. I do wonder if both in the US and the UK if this would legally be considered theft or not. I mean, it definitely would be a genre of theft, but which classification would it be? Wake me up 3000. So, you think I'm in your way? I'll make sure of it. Happened at Costco yesterday. As always, Costco is busy with everyone trying to pick up whatever on their way home from work. The usual carts in the way, people stopping abruptly to look at things, etc. I pick up a few things in produce. There's a woman with her cart behind her, and she's basically taking up the entire space by the grapes as she's making her selection while talking on the phone. I wait. She finally selects a container of grapes, puts it in her cart, and moves the cart. I walk in front of the display, look at 4 containers before selecting one, and as I turn my back to put it in my cart, I hear, "Jeez, some bitch just pushed in front of me to get grapes. What's wrong with people? No manners." To the person she's talking with on the phone. To be clear, I waited for her to finish and move her cart. I turned around with the "what the fuck is that about" face, and she looked me dead in the eyes and mouthed, "I wasn't talking about you. I'm the only one here, and have been the only one here for 2 minutes. So yes, you are talking about me." She moved down the next aisle, which is where I'm going too. So I decide I've got time, and will trail her through the store since we'll be going up and down the exact same aisles anyway. Every single time she stops to get something, I stop right behind her like I'm waiting for that too. If she takes a little too long, I let out a heavy sigh. Continually through the grocery section, I'm doing this. Since I'm a short middle-aged woman, it's not like I'm a physical threat. More like that annoying fly that won't leave you alone. She ended up shopping quite a bit faster and basically threw things into her cart before getting in line for self-checkout. Hope she'll think twice about talking crap and making things up about strangers because some of us have all the time in the world to annoy you. I would 100% think she was just trying to talk gossip to her friend on the phone and then, made the comment she did and thought she could slyly get away with, mouthing the words, "No, not you," to the person she was very clearly talking about. Imagine your need for fake gossip being so strong that you piss off a random stranger who then follows you around Costco and making your shopping spree hell. Also, big fan of the sentence, "Some of us have all the time in the world to annoy you." You just never know how petty someone might actually be. Gen Z Kinsey. I'm not replacing my TV on purpose. So basically, my mom left me a house when she moved away. She moved back and we agreed to have her move back into the house to save money for a future move. However, she took over the living room every night, which is the only place I can relax after my children go to bed. My son, 2.5 years old, sleeps in our room, so I can't watch TV in there after he's asleep. I had previously asked if she could just let me have a night or two to myself to relax in silence since my office is out there as well, or just to watch a movie. My problem was solved. My son threw a toy car at the TV, not on purpose, he throws things when he gets excited, and it just happened to hit the TV. and it left a huge mark on it. The thing is, I told her I can't afford to replace it. I actually can replace it, but the busted bit just doesn't bother me, so I'm not replacing it on purpose. My mom doesn't want to watch TV on it now and just watches TV in her own room. She has a 60-inch TV in there and just refused to use it before, so it's not like I'm being cruel. Is it petty? Maybe. But I see it as a win-win, Lamau. It's pretty shitty of your mom, if I'm gonna be honest with you. You're actively trying to raise a child, you just want to relax in the living room, but no. The 60-inch TV in her room is not good enough. Has to be in the living room. Won't give you any time to yourself at all. It's all her. According to some of the comments, OP even asked their mother, "Hey, because you're using the living room TV, could I watch TV in your room? So that way I can wind down?" And that was a solid no that was given. Also, with some additional digging, it also seems OP is kind of in a shit situation where, despite them paying the mortgage, they're not even on the title. It's still the mother. So they're at the whim of potentially being kicked out at any moment. I don't think the mother would do that because she's been riding high off the fact her mortgage is getting paid for her, with her still having the full deed to the house, but still. OP is just not in a fun situation at all, and this has been going on for the past 6 years apparently. Ooh. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget this whole thing is basically brought to you by GamerSupps. If you like caffeine, then I can't recommend GamerSupps enough. Use code Oz at checkout to support the channel. And I do actually use this product. It's replaced all other sources of caffeine for me because I feel good. It doesn't have any of that extra stuff that a pre-workout blend might have. It's with a couple of the extra things to make it so you don't crash as hard. It's good. I like it. Personally, if you really want a good flavor, try the Soda Pressing Pear or even the Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are my personal favorites right now.